Hello, welcome to Life Talk for October 30th, 2018. My name is Mark Crutcher, your genial host, and I'm joined here on the other side of the table by one half of the usual suspects, my daughter Sheila. Hello, Sheila.
Hi.
Renee is out today. Her husband's having surgery, Tim, and we want to have people praying all over the country for Tim.
Thinking and praying about him.
Yeah, he's having some surgery that we're just going to claim as the cure for the health problems that he has, and we
hopefully
that's what happens. We're going to trust God to deliver that victory. But anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we just count on Rennie being back next week.
That's right. So
That's right.
The empty chairs over here with
With the
our
crowd.
Life Dynamics mugs.
Right, that's great. We're going to have a special election edition show this week. And because next Tuesday is election day.
I've already voted, early voting. A lot of people have record numbers.
In Texas, I don't know if it's holding up like that all over the country, but I know they say here in Denton County, more than 3 times as many people have voted early as have voted in previous elections.
Yeah, total.
Yeah, right. So
I mean, it is a big election, so.
yeah, it is a very big election. One of the things that we've seen here, and this is the first thing we want to talk about, or this is basically what we are going to talk about today, people who call themselves pro-life and are openly supporting pro-abortion candidates.
Who say they are going to vote for a candidate who is for abortion, who says that they support abortion, they support Planned Parenthood, who are candidates who are even endorsed by NARAL and Planned Parenthood themselves.
Right.
This makes me so angry.
Yeah, it does me too. Well, the good thing about it is that it exposes these people for what they are.
Yeah,
and we know that we've been the kind of the victim, if you will, of this in the past. We've had somebody that worked here that we had to get rid of back in 2016 because they were going to vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And now that same person is going to vote for Beto O'Rourke over Ted Cruz. And
we're not naming any names.
No, we're not telling people who to vote for. But we're just saying in this particular case, this person has come out and said that they're doing that. Yeah. Beto O'Rourke is a raging pro-abort.
Yeah, and Planned Parenthood and NARAL, support him.
Right.
He openly states that he's for abortion.
Right. So. Now, we have to understand, and we've talked about this many times on previous shows, we have to be inclusive. There are liberals out there who are legitimately pro-life, but we also have to be wise. And one of the things the thing that we need to be cognizant of, and when we start talking to our liberal friends who say they're pro-life, we need to put them in a corner and say, okay, when push comes to shove, where are your true loyalties?
Is it for the unborn?
Or would you write them off? And unfortunately, we've seen that sometimes these people from the left who claim to be pro-life, that when those things collide, when those values collide,
they would rather stand up for their party than they would for the preborn that they say that they want to protect.
They'll write off the unborn. They'll drop them in the grease.
And I personally don't like the two-party system. I'm a person that votes on the issue.
Right.
And the number one issue being abortion for me. Because if you have a politician who says that they're for abortion, what else are they going to be for?
Right. Well, let's look at, there's basically 4 things I've heard over the years, and you've heard them as well. 4 things that they will say, that they will use as an excuse for claiming to be pro-life while voting for pro-aborts. One of them is that abortion is just one of many issues, and that they look at all the issues when they're voting. They'll say most political offices have nothing to do with abortion. We should not have litmus tests for politicians. And they said we're not going to waste our voting for strictly on pro-life because there's no consensus in America for stopping abortion, for outlawing abortion.
Yeah, and those are common arguments that everybody has heard.
We've heard these a million times. Let's go over each one of them individually. First off, I'm pro-life, but abortion is just one of many issues. I look at all the issues when deciding who to vote for.
Well, I want to say if a candidate cannot stand up for the most basic right to life from the moment of fertilization, what else can't they stand up for?
Well, yeah, but let me draw a real world example here, hypothetical. Let's say that one of these people who says this, that abortion is just one of many issues, was kidnapped. And they were taken to a warehouse somewhere, and they were stripped naked and tied up, and it was clear there was no way for them to escape. And their kidnappers make it clear that tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, they're going to start ripping this person's arms and legs off. They're going to crush their skull and crush their chest, and they're going to die a slow and painful, horribly painful death.
AKA the way that the preborn are being treated in today's America in the womb.
Right. Exactly what happens to to a baby that's being aborted is going to be done to these people. Now, would their attitude be that the people trying to save them shouldn't be focused on it too much because it's just one of many issues those people need to be dealing with?
No.
They wouldn't be saying that.
No.
And they wouldn't say, oh, my fate is just one of many issues. It's not that important. Let's look at other issues that are out there too. But the fact is that what I described a moment ago is the exact situation that 3,000 babies are in right now. That's what's going to happen to them today, and another 3,000 tomorrow, and another 3,000 the next day.
When did life become so? When did the meaning of life mean so little to people?
January 22nd, 1973.
Yeah, but right. Before that, right. It happened before that. I just don't understand why people consider the preborn to be not victims, but rather enemies. They are not.
Yeah, right.
They are not enemies. They are defenseless little babies who can't defend themselves.
But the bottom line to all this is, if you are truly pro-life, this many issues thing is nonsense because a candidate's position on other issues is irrelevant. There is no moral equivalence between the wholesale slaughter of millions of unborn children and any other social, cultural, political issue. There's no moral equivalence there.
And a good example is the civil rights movement. For them, the number one issue was slavery, freedom. When did you have other people saying, oh, that's just one of many issues. Let's look at something more important.
Let's vote for pro-slavery.
Yeah, that didn't happen. So why is it happening now?
Unfortunately, it did happen, and it led to a war.
Well, yeah, but the majority.
But the fact is that if you're truly pro-life, your attitude has to be that if a candidate's position is wrong on abortion, he can't be right enough on any other issue to neutralize it.
He doesn't have the morality.
No.
To be right on any other issue.
Second issue, I am pro-life, but most political offices have nothing to do with abortion. Well, first off, even if a political office is totally unrelated to abortion, the abortion views of someone who might seek that office are really important.
And every single person in the battle for life is important. Every person that stands up, a baby could be saved. So it doesn't matter if it's a local office, city council. It shows the politician's character and whether or not they're willing to stand up for what's right.
That's right. And every issue that they deal with is going to have a moral component to it. Let's say that you're talking about a financial issue. You're spending money that the country does not have and cannot pay back. That's a moral issue. That's not just an economic issue. If you're thinking about sending troops into war, that's not just a military issue. That's a moral issue too. And the fact is that someone who is pro-abortion does not have the moral fiber to be making those decisions.
And why should we trust that they would? You can't.
Right. And let me give you an example here. Let's say that some guy's seeking office, and he's right on all the issues. He's good on the issues. He's qualified for the office. But in an investigation, it's revealed that he is secretly a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Would people vote for him then?
Would they say, well, he's good on all these economic issues and he's good on these other issues? Yeah. No. What we would say is he is morally unqualified to serve in any capacity.
Right.
Well, that same dynamic applies here. If someone supports legalized abortion, that's a barometer, like you were mentioning a moment ago, of their moral character.
Caliber. Yeah.
They're morally unfit to make any kind of moral decisions, and they should not be put in any kind of office.
No matter how nice they seemed, or no matter how right they seemed on other positions, if they can't defend the basic right to life, then I'm going to look at that person and say, how can I trust you?
To make a moral decision.
Right, because whenever we vote, we're voting for a candidate to be our voice. We're not a true democracy. A true democracy would be each single one of us voting on every issue.
Right.
But instead, we have to elect government officials to be our voice. I'm not going to vote for someone to be my voice if they support the slaughtering of babies.
Right. They have no moral value.
Right.
Let's also remember something else here that's very important. I've had people say to me, well, this guy's running for city council, or he's running for county commissioner, or whatever. And very often, even those positions get dragged into the abortion bill. If you don't believe that, consider that in Austin, Texas, the city council voted to use city funds to pay for abortions. And so it's a disgrace. The whole city of Austin is disgraced.
I mean, abortion pops up in the most unlikely of places,
Right.
places you wouldn't even think. But it does happen. It's because it's like the #1 issue in America today. Everything revolves around it.
But the other thing you need to consider is, let's just say somebody's running for city council or county commissioner or dog catcher. I don't know of anybody that elects their dog catcher, but you often hear that.
I would.
Right. That's often just a stepping stone. That's their first entree into the political arena. If they're a pro-abort, it's easier to chop them off right there than it is to wait 10 years when they're in the United States Senate. And a perfect example of that we had right here in Texas was Kay Bailey Hutchison. When she was running in the Republican primary many, many years ago as a pro-abort, we had good Republican pro-lifers running against her. But she had a lot of money. Her husband had a ton of money. He was former head of the Republican Party of Texas or whatever he was. Anyway, and a lot of people that went out and supported Kay Bailey Hutchison were pro-lifers. And I was saying then, do not let this woman become a United States Senator from Texas. Now, she originally ran in a state office. Don't let her win that office, because that's a stepping stone to this.
Exactly.
And what we wound up with was a godless Republican pro-abort in the United States Senate in Kay Bailey Hutchison.
Right.
We could have chopped her off at the knees in the lower offices. So don't tell me these offices don't have anything to do with abortion.
No, you're right. It's a stepping stone, and it's also why it's important to look at people's track records. You know, politicians, it's a timeline. They start here and then they go here. So it's important that when you're looking at abortion and whether or not they're pro-life, it's important that you go back, that you research them to know where they truly do stand.
And where they're going in the future. But when Kay Bailey Hutchison, going back to that example, when she won a statewide office in Texas as a Republican pro-abort, the die was cast. And she was set in motion then. From that point forward, she never had to do anything for the pro-life community, which she didn't. And she voted against pro-life interest all along the way.
I mean, people can repent and change their minds.
She didn't. Right.
The majority of times, politicians don't.
Right. So. The third argument we hear is we should not have litmus tests for politicians. This is pure nonsense. This is rubbish.
Why? My question is, why not?
Right.
Why not? What's so bad
What's the
about
problem?
that?
We have all kinds of litmus tests. But again, let's go back to the analogy we made earlier. A politician could be attractive, intelligent, experienced, and have all the right answers to the important issues of the day. But again, if he was a member of the Klan, wouldn't that be a litmus test?
Yes.
Wouldn't people say, well, I wish he wasn't a member of the Klan, but I can't vote for him because he is. But he's right on everything. He's the perfect candidate. So,
or like if Hitler, Hitler deceived millions of people, they should have, if he had a litmus test, then
they would have not voted for him.
Yeah, and we wouldn't have had.
So that would be a litmus test. What if a guy was running for office or a woman was running? In this case, it would be more likely to be a man. And he had written an article that said women should not be allowed to vote. But he was right on everything else. Would that be a litmus test?
Yeah.
It absolutely would be.
And
what if he said, wait a minute. What if he said that the guys who flew airplanes into the buildings in New York, the 9/11 terrorist, what if he came out and said, you know what, I've looked at that, and I think those guys had some legitimate reasons for doing that. Would that be a litmus test?
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
He's history.
So there's nothing wrong with litmus tests. We need to know where these politicians stand.
Right. Well, I would argue, you say there's nothing wrong with it. I would argue that if anybody who says they don't have litmus tests is either is either lying or they have no core values. Nothing means anything to them.
Yeah.
So yes, we have all kinds of litmus tests, and we should have litmus tests.
Before you cast your vote, you should seriously look at who you're voting for.
In this case, if that person's pro-abortion, you don't vote for them.
Yep.
The final thing you often hear is there's no consensus in America for outlawing abortion, so I'm not going to waste my vote on somebody I don't like on these other issues just because they're pro-life. Well, first off, consensus is irrelevant. Let's remember a couple of things here. At one time in American history, there was no consensus for outlawing slavery. There was never any consensus for outlawing slavery. There was no consensus for allowing women to vote.
Right.
At one time, the consensus was that the earth is flat.
Well, so that argument is coming back.
But the people who make it are nutty. But
not always. I mean, they have some, but no.
But yeah, we have the guy here in Denton that drives all around with the earth is flat.
Yeah.
But anyway, but the fact is that world history, when you start talking about consensus, world history is littered with examples where the word consensus simply meant all the fools were on one side. That's all it meant.
It doesn't matter whether the numbers are, over here or the numbers over here. It's about what's right. It's not about the quantity. It's about the quality.
That's right.
And it's not necessarily, and it's about making the preborn being seen as human beings, which they are, being seen as human beings from the moment of fertilization, which science backs up. That's what it's about.
Right. And when you vote for a pro-abort, you're saying that's not true.
Yeah.
Because you surely couldn't be voting for somebody that would butcher children by the millions.
Exactly.
But on this consensus thing, and we're going to take a time out here for RoeBots here in just a second, we got to remember something about this consensus issue. First off, like you said a moment ago, it doesn't matter. If 10 people are wrong about something and one's right, do what's right.
Exactly.
And again, in history, we know consensus very often means most of the fools are on one side.
And as a millennial, I see that often. It is kind of frustrating being the only one standing over here while this group over here is eating Tide Pods and, voting for the wrong people.
Right.
So, as a millennial, it is frustrating. But, you have to stand your ground.
But what we have to understand is that as the pro-life movement, it is our job not to follow consensus, but to create consensus.
Right.
That is our responsibility.
To stand our ground for what is right.
And you don't do that by voting for pro-aborts.
And you don't do that by, saying, oh, well, all these other people are, going to vote for a pro-abort, so it must be right. I'm going to follow this number over here.
That's irrelevant. Yeah. All right, let's take a moment out for consensus, and we'll come back and finish up on this issue.
RoeBots.
RoeBots, not consensus. Take a moment out for RoeBots.
In 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion nationwide. The decision is called Roe versus Wade, and those who defend it are known as RoeBots. This is how they think.
I am personally opposed to abortion, but as a politician, it is not my place to impose my personal beliefs on others. Besides, the government has no right to be involved in the practice of medicine.
Well, first off, the government is already involved in the practice of medicine. In fact, except for the abortion industry, the medical community is one of the most highly regulated environments in America. I will also point out that telling people they can't intentionally kill their fellow human beings is not practicing medicine, even if the people you tell it to are doctors. As for the claim that they would not impose their beliefs on others, why are they running for political office? Imposing their beliefs on others is the only thing politicians are elected to do, and that is what every vote they cast does. And if political office holders are not going to be guided by their own personal views, then why would they bother to tell us what those personal views are And whose views are they going to be guided by if not their own? Let's also not forget that millions of unborn babies have been butchered in American abortion clinics only because pro-choice politicians have imposed their personal beliefs on them. Of course, I guess those babies are expendable since they are out of sight, can't vote, and don't give money to political campaigns. The reality is, when someone says that they personally oppose abortion or that they think abortion is wrong, what they are saying is that abortion takes the life of a living human being. After all, there is no other justification for being opposed to abortion. So when you cut through all the political posturing, what these guys are actually saying is that abortion is murder, but they would not do anything to stop it. So my question is, have America's moral values sunk so low that cowardly and self-serving gibberish like that can actually be passed off as political leadership? And what are the long-term consequences for a nation that puts people in positions of leadership who say they wouldn't do anything to stop what they agree is the wholesale slaughter of defenseless and innocent children? We're back. You know, a few years ago, Bill Parcells was the coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
I did not know that, but okay.
You don't remember that?
No, I'm not a Cowboys fan. I don't like football.
Okay, well, anyway, he was. He was the coach of the Cowboys. And one time, the Cowboys were not doing very well and had a losing record. And somebody asked him, don't you think the Cowboys are really better than that, and that they're better than what their record shows, and that they're the best, 2-5 team in football or some nonsense like that, whatever the record was? And he says, no. He says, you are what your record says you are. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely true. You can sugarcoat it all you want to,
right,
but he's right. You are what your record says you are. Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you something. The subject that we've been talking about here today, and we're going to wrap this up real quickly here. The bottom line to all this is very simple. Mm-hmm. You can call yourself pro-life, you can call yourself this, you can call yourself that.
Right.
But if you vote pro-choice, you are pro-choice.
You are.
That's what you are. You are what your record says you are.
And there are pro-life leaders out there who are saying, yes, I'm pro-life, I'm a pro-life leader, but I'm going to vote for this candidate over here who openly states that they are for abortion.
Right.
Well, the blood of those babies is on your hands.
Exactly. The blood of every baby mm-hmm. that dies as a result of the policies that politician mm-hmm. puts into place are on your hands.
Exactly.
You killed those babies.
And they also are leading people astray as well.
Right. They're leading other people astray.
I vote, when I vote, in my mind and in my heart, I say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Right. Well, that's what we're supposed to do, but
exactly.
That's not what we often do. Yeah. But anyway, we've got this problem, and the pro-life movement needs to address it. And what we need to do, too, mm-hmm. is once this election's over, ever how things come out, mm-hmm. let's remember these people.
Right, and not support them because they obviously won't stand up for the lives of these innocent babies.
Right. Don't tell me you're going to support this person over here mm-hmm. who openly stated that I'm pro-life, but I'm voting for this pro-abortion.
How can we trust them as a pro-life leader?
You can't. They're not trustworthy anymore. Yeah. And I want to urge everybody out there, next Tuesday is voting day, and I want you to think about the things we've said here, but the most important thing to think about is what we just got through saying. Mm-hmm. If you vote pro-choice, you are pro-choice. And that makes every baby that dies as a result of the politicians you put in office, that the blood of that child is on your hands. Mm-hmm. And before you vote, just make sure you can live with that. Whatever you do, just make sure you can live with that. You're okay with the blood of those babies being mm-hmm. on your hands. You got anything else, Sheila? We got to go.
No, share your comments, concerns on our Facebook pages, the Life Talk, Life Dynamics, your personal Facebook page, or send comments, questions to Renee.
To Renee. Renee is the gatekeeper here, mm-hmm. And she'll be back next week. And in the meantime, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops. We'll see you next Tuesday.